Hello! It's been a roller coaster of a ride being a DC fan since the release of Man of Steel. It's been like watching a soap opera, twist after turn after twist after turn. It's been very difficult being a DC fan, being at Warner Brothers, working at Warner Brothers in terms of these films, and making these films as well. We haven't really known where we are. There were plans here, there were slates that were never kind of fulfilled. Very, very problematic. I'm a huge fan of the Snyderverse. I love all three of his movies. We've spoken about it. I've been very balanced about my opinion on Snyder's movies, the DCEU in general, and James Gunn and his plans. Well, James Gunn's been talking DC Universe again, and I'm very happy that he has been trying to clear the mist. But I think some fans are more confused than ever. And I can understand why. I think the confusion is something that James Gunn enjoys because it keeps you and me talking about what could happen and what might not happen in his brand new DC Universe. So he's been talking about canon. He's been talking about his thoughts and feelings about cinematic universes. There was discourse between him and the Snyder fan. We'll get into that as well. So first of all, let's talk about the discourse between James Gunn and yet another Snyder fan. I think the Snyder fan, I'm not sure, but I think the Snyder fan was spamming, restore the Snyderverse, sell Snyderverse to Netflix. So James came back at him and he said, listen, in my conversations with Zack, he's never kind of made me think that he wants to come back to DC. We haven't had any conversations about that. Let's be absolutely clear about this so we can move on as soon as possible because this is utterly repetitive. But because we're talking DC, it's something I have to cover because James has mentioned this before and now he's mentioned it again. Zack Snyder would do anything to finish what he started at DC. But it's not going to happen because there's people at Warner Brothers who used to be there when Zack was making these films. They fell out and it's not going to happen. I'm sure Zack Snyder, in his conversations with James Gunn, didn't tell him he'd rather they didn't use Justice League footage instead of footage from the Snyder Cut in a DC documentary meant to be celebrating DC. But anyway, it isn't going to happen. There's people at Warner Brothers that don't want it to happen. I'm a straight talker. I would love the Snyderverse to be restored in a little corner. I never want Zack Snyder in charge of a central universe again. He's not that type of filmmaker. He don't care about box office. He don't care about the mainstream audience. He said that himself. I'm not saying anything controversial here. Unless Zaslav and WB Discovery are desperate to make some extra money and lease the DC brand out to Netflix so Zack can finish what he started, it's not happening. If I was you, this is what I would do, and this is what I will do, along with you, the decent, sane people of the Snyderverse fandom. Keep on hashtagging, keep on pushing for, Snyderverse to be sold to Netflix, restore the Snyderverse. There's nothing wrong with those hashtags, but keep away from James Gunn. Stop looking for historical tweets, historical Facebook posts. Leave him alone. They're trying to brand you, us, because I'm part of that fandom. I'm an all-round DC fan. I'm not here for Zack or anything like that. Zack's a millionaire. He can look after himself. He don't need anyone here for him. But they're trying to brand us as toxic fandom. And there's an element of our fandom, unfortunately, that keeps on helping them with that propaganda. So be good, be pure, be wholesome. Hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix. Nothing wrong with that. But keep these hashtags away from James Gunn. Stop getting into his comments. Stop tagging him and attacking him. Stop calling him a child abuser. You have no proof that he is that or anything else nefarious. So stop saying it. You're lucky he don't bloody sue you. Just be pure. Just be wholesome. Because this is why he's saying to the fan yesterday, me and Zack have never had those conversations. Zack hasn't made me feel that he wants to come back. He's trying to wind you up. He's trying to hurt you because you're trying to wind up and hurt him. He's very much within his rights to defend himself. He's only human. It isn't a good look for the co-CEO of DC Studios to be getting into fights with fans but there's only so much, people can take. If you're crossing the line looking for historical tweets and things like that and calling him, unkind names, what you expect, you're going to get. By the way, you needed him on your side, right? As I say, there's people at WB that don't want Zach back to finish what he started. We all know that. We all know they're in a financial situation that they may be desperate enough, as I say, to lease Snyderverse to Netflix, to allow, lease the DC brand out to Netflix to let Zach finish what he started. But some of you have started, you've got off on the wrong foot with James Gunn. You're angry because he wasn't going to continue with Henry Cavill as Superman. I get you. I get you, bros and sis. I get you, brothers and sisters. I'm frustrated about that as well. Henry Cavill was a perfectly great Superman. But the problem is that's not on Gunn. It was Adby and DeLuca who brought him back, right? And then Gunn came in and said, well, I don't think his Superman works. I think I need someone slightly younger. And I want to go with my own actor. I want to create my own universe. The disparity and even more of the frustration came in when people realized that obviously he was going to keep John Cena as Peacemaker, but he's within his rights to do that. He brought him on board. Why would he get rid of stuff that he's done? By the way, I really like John Cena's Peacemaker as well. I enjoyed the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, so I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, he's already said, let's move on from the Snyder stuff now, because it's boring, it's repetitive, we've been there. It ain't happening, right, over at WB, but keep on fighting anyhow, but wholesomely. So, he was asked who he's keeping in his new universe, so he said he's keeping John Cena as Peacemaker, Amanda Waller, basically Viola Davis as, Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. Get that, my words out. It's very early and I'm hungover, and I apologise. Anyway, he's keeping her, and he's keeping Zolo Maradona as Blue Beetle, aka Jamie Reyes. Now, there's no point in recasting, Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. She's perfect. He'd have to be a fucking lunatic to replace her. And Zolo Maradona, it would be very, very small-minded to recast him as well. Then he said something else which was very, very interesting. Now, don't forget, he's just said that he's keeping 3 actors from the previous franchise. He then says nothing is canon till Creature Commandos and Superman Legacy. Now, this is nothing he hasn't said before. Now, months ago, a few sites reported that he actually said, and I never saw him say this myself, that his Suicide Squad universe wasn't canon in DC Universe. So how can you be keeping John Cena's Peacemaker, Zolo Maradona's Jamie Reyes, and Viola Davis, Amanda Waller, and then say that, nothing's canon until Creature Commandos, which I'm really excited about, by the way, and Superman Legacy, and as a Superman fan, of course I'm excited about that. I'm sad that Henry doesn't continue in the role, but I think he's cast a very good dude as Superman and Clark Kent, aka Kal-El, and I'm looking forward to seeing what James Gunn does with it all. But how can you say you're keeping them and say nothing's canon until Creature Commandos and Superman Legacy? So today I want to clear a bit of that mist for you. So we already know that we've had a Flash movie that basically rewrote the DC universe. And I think they're using that film, even though it flopped, even though it had major problems and it was a terrible kind of adaptation of the Flashpoint graphic novel, I still feel they're using that to reset the DC universe. How are they going to do that? Because Barry Allen created a new timeline when he went back to save his mum, then he went back and reset the timeline, things went a little wrong. That's why you see George Clooney at the end of the movie, because things have gone, as Sam Beckett would say, things have gone a little caca. So time's been reset, but things are not exactly as they once were. So you're going to see like some actors playing the same roles. You're going to have some actors like Henry Cavill, maybe Ben Affleck, we don't know, playing characters, DC characters, that they weren't playing before. I think that's his plan. That's why when he announced that Cavill wasn't going to be his Superman, that he did have discussions with Cavill about him playing another role in the DC universe, and I think this is what he's looking to do. I think you may see a lot of the previous DC actors, maybe ones in small roles, big roles, playing different characters, because that's what I'm trying to say. Flashpoint changed everything, reset the universe, but everything's different. And so, yes, John Cena is playing Peacemaker, he's playing that Peacemaker, but his history may be a little different, because this is exactly what happens in these Flashpoint stories, because they've used Flash in the comics to reboot the universe before. In fact, on multiple occasions, it's happened because of what the Flash can do with his powers of speed. So yeah, John Cena's Peacemaker, Amanda Waller's Viola Davis, Amanda Waller, and Zola Maraduna's Jamie Reyes will be playing these characters, but they'll be reset a little bit and their history won't be the same. And so it's basically, it's the DCEU, but a little different. It's changed. Some things will stay the same and some things will change. So definitely they're using the Flash movie to say that they've rewritten the DC universe. So in all intents and purposes, it basically is a full reboot. Because we've been talking and arguing about whether, DC Universe should be a full reboot. And I've always been of the mind it should be, and everything should be recast, but it's clear he's not doing this. He's going to use a lot of these actors in different roles, that's my theory, and the actors playing the same roles will kind of be the same, but a little different because of Flashpoint. And I think this is where we're going. But as I say, in all intents and purposes, basically it is a reset. It's something very, very different. And, listen, there's going to be DC fans out there saying, I'm not getting involved. I'm not watching this. I'm boycotting this stuff. That's up to you. I can't boycott DC. I have to taste any DC that's out there and make my mind up myself. That's it. And it's up to you what you do at the end of the day. I'm going to give the man a chance. DC fans deserve a DC live-action universe that is for everyone, for the many and not for the few. That's something I've always wanted for us DC fans. So we can celebrate DC together. The Snyder situation, the DCEU has created some toxic discourse. But if James Gunn can be successful with this, then, then he'll quiet the noise, as I've said on many occasions. It's all about box office. It's all about success. Simple as that. He's clearly thinking deeply about what he's doing. He's using the Flash movie to reset the universe. So, in a lot of ways, it's a full reboot, but it's also not a full reboot. And what he's doing is you will see some, existing actors who have been in the universe playing different roles. Maybe Margot Robbie won't play Harley Quinn anymore. Maybe she'll play somebody else. Interesting, right? Henry Cavill will play somebody else. He's already said that. He's going to take different actors and put them in different roles from the previous DCEU. And this is what he's planning on doing with Jason Momoa as Lobo. Instead of him being Aquaman, he's going to be Lobo. Now, potentially, you can use Jason as Aquaman and as Lobo because the makeup is so brash and big. He's going to look very different anyway. But that doesn't even matter, right? Because look, you could actually use the multiverse to explain this with Jason Momoa. Because if Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is successful, now that's unlikely. It's a very good, dark, Wrath of Khan movie, but very unlikely. If it's successful enough, he can continue playing Aquaman in DC Elseworlds. So basically, James Wan's Aquaman franchise could end up being part of DC Elseworlds and not part of DC Universe. That's my suspicion if the film is successful. Of course, very unlikely right now, but let's see what happens by December. So you can do that. But yeah, this is what he's going to do. He's going to take existing DC actors, DCEU actors, and put them in different roles, change up the universe a little bit. So, as I say, it's an extension of a DCEU, but it's a reboot. It's a reset. It's a literal reboot. Barry Allen has rebooted the universe, and this is what happened in the Flash movie. And so it will be very interesting how this all looks. Brandon Routh over there could play someone totally different that he played, he played Superman, doesn't he? The reason I display that every day now, because I fucking love that picture and that poster, and I think it's great. He looks fucking awesome there. Anyway, so yeah, you're going to see a lot of existing DC actors playing different roles, and I hope somehow I've cleared up the myth for you that, yeah, it's a reset, basically. It basically is a full reboot, but mostly it's an extension of what you've seen, but basically he's taking the DCEU because of Flashpoint in the Flash movie and turning it on its head. And some things will be similar, not the same, similar, and a lot of characters will be played by different actors. We're going to have a new Batman, we're going to have a new Robin, so it's going to be very exciting. We're going to have a brand new actor as Perry White, Lex Luthor. So these elements are excited unless your mind is stuck in the past and you despise Gunn so deeply, you don't want to come on this road. If I were you, it would be less painful, if you're a Snyder fan, to focus on Rebel Moon and move on if you don't want to see how this is going to unravel. Because one thing's for sure, everyone, what we can say now, there's another piece of mist that's been cleared. James Gunn isn't going anywhere. Peter Safran isn't going anywhere. And it's clear now David Zaslav isn't going anywhere. They are doing this. They are resetting the DC Universe. DC Universe is happening. No longer the DCEU. It's the DCU. Now, whether you like that, whether you don't like that, that's what's happening. And the proof of the pudding, as we say over in the UK, is within the eating. And we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But that wasn't all James Gunn had to say. Because a fan constructively challenged him and said, why should I watch a cinematic universe just so you can set up 5 or 6 movies down the line? James Gunn responded very constructively, politely, and I know I really liked what James said here. James Gunn speaks a very, very good game. And I really like what mostly he says about the MCU and about shared universes. He said, if it's going to be homework for you, there's no point you watching it. Basically, I want a cinematic universe that focuses on each movie. And that's the part of it, that the movie is the focus. And this is how these movies will make money. Now, in terms of the MCU, Feige come up with a very clever idea where he knew that people felt they had to watch each episode, aka each movie, for the setup, because you would feel like you were missing out on something if you didn't watch the next movie and the next one. But the quality in the films wasn't always there. Well, James Gunn doesn't like that idea. He likes the idea of making a really good movie that you can immerse yourself in, but obviously it's a shared universe. You can have cameos. There's an arc. There's this Gods and Monsters arc. It's going to be a fantastical DC universe. And so I really like this. I really like what James Gunn has said here, because he's a movie fan. He grew up in the same era of entertainment as we did. He thinks Hollywood is just as bad today as we do. If you look at his portion of the MCU, he was able to keep Feige out and say, this is my franchise, these are my movies, I'm doing them my way. I understand, I'll do your post-credit scenes, right? I'll let you put in what you want to put in, but don't take the piss, this is my movie. Basically, it's a similar thing to what James Wan has said to James Gunn. I'm very happy to listen to your ideas, but at the end of the day, it's my movie. James Gunn has been absolutely the same way with Kevin Feige. So, yeah, James Gunn definitely isn't a Kevin Feige, puppet, robot, clone. He has his own ideas how a cinematic universe can work. So this will not be the MCU 2.0, just like some Snyder fans are trying to sell it. That is not what's happening here. But it is a franchise that's films, television, streaming, and gaming, and comics. And another thing that Gunn's been doing is attempting to sell comic books. I like that, because without comics, without that medium, there'd be no Superman, there'd be no Batman. Even though I'm not a big comic book reader and I'm from the live action portion of DC, I appreciate the comics, and we must fight to keep them alive. So what James is doing there is a very, very good idea. He understands without the comics, we have no substance. So he's done this big thing, and he's got a foreword in there, and he's been pushing that as well. So you can check that out. Check out his account on Twitter and Threads and Instagram. James Gunn is everywhere. James Gunn isn't perfect. You ain't perfect. I ain't perfect, right? But James Gunn will be responsible for DC succeeding or failing. And now it's time to allow him to take his shot. That's it. And if he succeeds, he gets the credit. And if he fails, we will criticize him. James Gunn very well understands this. But it's all about how we conduct ourselves and how he conducts himself, right? As fans, I don't want to be hearing people going into his comments and swearing and threatening him and calling him the P word and this. I don't want to hear it. This is not how you get a good relationship with creatives. I had a good relationship with creatives all my life. And no, not because I grew up within the entertainment industry and celeb industry, the celeb circuit in Hollywood and in the UK because of my dad. Because I've always spoken to creatives, both ones that I admire and don't admire as much, right? And there can be discourse, there can be disagreement, but it can be done with manners and respect. And some of the things fans have been doing and saying about James Gunn isn't very good. I don't care if you're here for Zack or not here for Zack, right? I know you're upset. I'm upset about the Cavill situation. I'm upset with how Snyder was treated. But guess what? That's showbiz, kids. Zack Snyder isn't the first director, the first artist, the first piece of talent to be abused by Hollywood. It happens everywhere in big business. And it's all part of the game. And Zack Snyder understood that. He fought. He brought us on board to help him fight for the Snyder Cut. We're very lucky a 4-hour Justice League movie exists. And I'm very grateful for Zack Snyder. And you as fans can keep on fighting and hashtagging. Fighting the right way. But James Gunn isn't going anywhere. Zack Snyder isn't going to come and ride on a white horse and take over the central universe of DC. It's not happening because Zaslav knows Snyder can't bring in the money. He believes James Gunn can. Now, James Gunn has never made $1 billion movie, but neither has Zack Snyder, by the way. But he has made very successful movies in the comic book genre. We know that. And clearly, he has got some kind of a plan. And what I've tried to do today is clear the mist for you. So, and I hope that I've done that, because what I don't want to do is confuse people even further. I would like to do a live video and do some questions and answer sessions and things like that. I haven't put one of these videos on Premiere for a long time because now I'm doing bite-sized videos for Twitter and Instagram. They take forever to upload, and then I'm uploading a half-an-hour video. So yeah, this is why you're not seeing the premieres anymore. But we'll get back to it. And I'm planning, not yet, but in the future, to do one live video a week. Maybe on a Thursday. I don't know yet. So that's in the future. We'll get there when things calm down a bit and the temperature cools down over here as well. Personally, I'm excited at the very least to see what James Gunn's going to do. Because I'm an all-round DC fan. I fell in love with DC because of Superman the movie. The first comic book movie, the first Superman movie, the first movie I ever saw. That movie is the reason I love DC and I love Superman and I love all these DC characters. And I want someone to come in and grab this thing and make something fantastic of it. Now, the idea of having a cinematic universe, but not just that, a universe that has films, gaming, television, streaming, animation. It's very exciting if they can do it well. Of course there's red flags, of course there's been problems, But until we see the content, and that is how you judge James Gunn on the content, on the films, on the animation, on the gaming, and how they can do all of this, right? If he's successful, he deserves the credit. If he's not, he deserves the criticism. That's the way life goes. As I say, James Gunn has been doing a lot of talking. Sometimes he's upset people, sometimes he's pleased people. But at the end of the day, you know, talk is cheap. And it's about what he can put on the screen. It's as simple as that. And I think, obviously, Creature Commandos, I think, comes out before Superman Legacy. I think that's going to be very important to see how people kind of react to that. Unfortunately, unless you have access to Max, you won't be able to watch Creature Commandos unless it's sold to a network in your country. So I won't be able to review Creature Commandos when it comes out because I don't have access to Max here in Cyprus. And so unless it's sold to Sky like Peacemaker was, I won't be able to see it. So hopefully there's some way I'll have access to Creature Commandos. I actually think that's going to be really good because that's in James Gunn's Roadhouse. It's to his strengths. So it's very exciting to see lesser DC characters being used. We want Superman, Batman and Wonder Woman, but we want the other characters that have really not been given a chance to, you know, have the shining light, to have the light shine on them. So I think it's important. And I think in terms of what he's saying, I like most of what he's saying. In terms of him keeping people like John Cena, you know, that's part of the baggage. He brought him in. He's not exactly going to fire, you know, John Cena and rehire Henry Cavill. That would make no sense because he brought in John Cena as that character. People like John Cena, you know, as Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker. People like him. I like him. John Cena's great. He follows everyone on Twitter, not just me, but everyone, right? I bet you if you're on Twitter, he's followed you on Twitter. But yeah, so this is what's happening. They're using the Flash movie to reset the universe, turn it on its head, swap some actors around in different roles, keep other actors like John Cena as Peacemaker. And so this is what you're going to get. Whether it works or not, we're going to have to wait and see. But one thing's for sure. James Gunn is the co-CEO of DC Studios. He's going to remain the co-CEO of DC Studios. There's no question. He was partially brought in as an influencer to sell this year's DCEU movies, and it didn't work. But as I say, I'm sure David Zaslav understands that not even Arthur Daly or Derek Trotter could have sold these movies because they're that mid, they're that bad. You know, I don't think any of these movies are bad, but they're not good either. Blue Beetle is a very slow-paced movie, and certainly a movie that was made for Max, which should have stayed on Max. I don't know why Zaslav moved it to the theatrical system. It didn't work for what the movie is, but the movie has a lot of, current day Hollywood issues. Let's put it there. But anyway, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will come out at the end of the year. Then that's that. Then it's the brand new DC universe. I'm expecting SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Union, to start talking to Hollywood studios, streamers, and companies on Monday. I expect them to come to a deal this time, and so Superman Legacy should be able to start filming in the spring. I think that's what I've heard. Also, James Gunn has also said that after the strike, he'll be able to reveal some more casting news, which is really, really exciting. Because whether you're a Snyder fan, a Gunn fan, or an all-round DC fan like me, a fan of films, television, and entertainment in general, I think you'll agree. The casting so far for Superman Legacy is very, very exciting. David Corenswet is going to be a great Clark Kent, Superman, and Kal-El. And Rachel Brosnahan, she's amazing in the fabulous Miss Maisel. So, yeah, the casting is brilliant. And I expect the rest of the casting to be filled out as soon as these strikes are over. And I think the casting will be really, really excellent. And yes, he will use some of his friends that he's worked with at Marvel and, you know, all of that. We may see Robert Downey Jr. as Perry White. That's my personal casting, by the way. I think you know, he's at the right age to play Perry White. That would be interesting, but we'll have to wait and see. So that's what James Gunn has said, speaking about canon, saying that nothing's canon till Creature Commandos and Superman Legacy, which basically means that the old DCEU isn't really going to be canon, kind of a little bit canon. And I know it's confusing, but I promise you, when you start seeing Creature Commandos and Superman Legacy, everything will begin to make sense. I can't switch it off.